Welcome to Idaho Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin podcast, your weekly news roundup of hunting, fishing, trapping, and conservation stories from around the Gem State. Hosted by Fish and Game's Public Information Specialist, Connor J. Lease.
And welcome back to Idaho Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin podcast. Not a whole lot to cover this week. We got some e-tagging reminders, a brand new video highlighting the work of our staff and volunteers who planted roughly 40 million sagebrush and bitterbrush seeds along the scars of the Paddock Fire, and a few upcoming events in parts of the state. But first, an important note for salmon anglers. Attention Idaho anglers, Fish and Game is seeking public input on management strategies for spring and summer Chinook salmon for the Clearwater Basin, Hells Canyon, Rapid River, both the Lower Salmon and the Little Salmon rivers, and the South Fork Salmon River fisheries. Our staff will be setting the new seasons for upcoming spring and summer Chinook salmon and gathering public input on the upcoming season proposals from February 14th to March 1st. The proposed seasons are on our website as we speak, but only for a limited time. So if you'd like to weigh in, hit the link below and provide some comments. The 2025 spring Chinook salmon seasons and limits are scheduled to be set by the Idaho Fish and Game Commission during the March 26 meeting in Boise. Summer Chinook salmon seasons are usually set in June. And that's all I got on that one. Hit the full story link if you want further information. While we're on the subject of anadromous fish, let's quickly run through a refresher on e-tagging. Fish and Game's electronic salmon and steelhead permits, aka e-tags, are available at all vendors or through the Go Outdoors Idaho mobile app. Remember, if you buy or have already bought a paper tag, you're ineligible for e-tagging, so ask for it when you buy from a licensed vendor. Now, if you want the full rundown on how e-tagging works, we did a whole dang episode all about it. Episode number 36 with the two folks that know e-tagging best, Tara Reichert and Chris Sullivan. Flip on back in the Hook and Bulletin catalog if you want more of a deep dive on this newish product. Essentially though, e-tagging allows salmon or steelhead anglers to validate their permits electronically. Anglers can use the app while out of cell service, in low service areas, and while the device is on airplane mode. E-tagging also allows anglers to buy an electronic salmon or steelhead permit and start fishing immediately instead of waiting for a paper tag to arrive in the mail. Once an angler electronically tags a fish and then clicks submit, they receive a confirmation number for each fish that was e-tagged, and the permit is legally validated. If the angler is out of cell service, they can still submit their catch and their app will confirm that information was stored. Then the catch will be fully submitted after the angler gets back into cell range. Paper tags are still available for those who prefer the traditional method of reporting their catch, but anglers must choose one or the other each year. Head on over to our e-tagging webpage to learn more. I promise that's the last salmon story this week. Now let's switch gears, get a bird's eye view of one really cool restoration project in the southwest part of the state. Last summer, about 180,000 acres burned during the Paddock Fire that ignited north of Emmett and charred a huge swath of important winter range for mule deer. And sadly, it wasn't the only big fire in southern Idaho. When wildfires are extinguished, we thank the firefighters, we mourn the loss of what burned, and then an army of volunteers led by Idaho Fish and Game descends on the land to give nature a head start, regrowing what was lost. Earlier this fall, volunteers collected millions of sagebrush seeds. Then they returned and replanted thousands of acres with nearly 40 million sagebrush and bitterbrush seeds so that when spring arrives, hopefully any day now, new plants will grow to benefit the wildlife that relies on it. And thanks to our videographer, Will Bales, the whole project was documented on film. Head on over to our YouTube channel to see it for yourself. And that's not the end of the story. You can still join this dedicated team of volunteers on other fire rehabilitation projects, as well as sign up for future Fish and Game-led volunteer projects around the state. Since the video aired, the outpouring of support and volunteers has been remarkable, so thank you for taking an interest. That's all the major stories this week. Let's hit the rapid fire bulletin. Idaho Fish and Game's Southeast region is working with the Bureau of Land Management and Bureau of Reclamation to implement prescribed burns across a portion of the Sterling Wildlife Management Area located in southeastern Idaho north of Aberdeen. Depending on weather and fuel conditions, the prescribed burns will take place over a few days sometime between February 12th and March 30th, and a portion of the WMA will be closed to public access during the burn period. For everyone's safety, the public is asked to please obey all closure signs. Fish and Game Citizens Shooting Range Advisory Committee will hold its fourth meeting on February 24th at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time at Fish and Game's headquarters building in Boise. The meeting will be streamed live via Zoom. However, members of the public in attendance or online can observe the meeting, but there will be no opportunities for public comment or interaction with the committee during the meeting. Idaho Fish and Game is holding a wolf trapper certification class during the 2025 Idaho Sportsman Show at Expo Idaho in Garden City. The event is on Saturday, March 1st, and there is still space available. The class will be held from 1:45 p.m. to 6:45 p.m. at the Expo Idaho Western Town Conference Room located on Glenwood Street. Everyone who pre-registers for this wolf trapper certification course will have their entry fee for the Idaho Sportsman Show waived for Saturday. All they will need to do is present their confirmation email at the entry gate for the Sportsman Show. Be sure to show up early and stop by Idaho Fish and Game's booth and everything else the show has to offer. It's time again to see how your latest trophy animal measures up. Idaho Fish and Game is hosting a big game scoring day on Thursday, March 13th at the Southeast Region Office in Pocatello. Measuring for Boone and Crockett, both rifle and pistol, Pope and Young for archery, and Long Hunter Society for muzzleloader will be conducted by certified measurers for entry into the big game record books. And the best part of all, it's totally free. Read Jenny Jackson's story if you want to learn more. Okay, that's it for this week's stories. It's time for our question of the week. Now, this week's question comes to us from YouTube viewer at ForestRoamer1433. They ask, is prescribed fire used in Idaho to help mitigate massive wildfires? Shout out to Grace Bullington, one of our biologists featured in the restoration video I mentioned earlier, for the assist on this one. Yes, prescribed burning is one of the tools used to reduce hazardous fires in Idaho. Typically, the BLM or other land management agencies will evaluate when and where it is most appropriate to use prescribed fire. As an agency, we assist and partner with other state and federal agencies, as mentioned in Jenny Jackson's press release about the prescribed burns happening at Sterling WMA. Hope this helps. That's all the news we have for this week, boys and girls, and man, it might be the shortest one we've ever done. Thanks for putting an ear to Idaho Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin. If there's something on your mind, or if you got a question related to Fish and Game matters, feel free to drop us a line at podcast@idfg.idaho.gov. Again, that's podcast@idfg.idaho.gov. We got a really cool deep dive episode next week with some of our fisheries managers, so make sure you're subscribed to the Hook and Bulletin podcast. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll catch you next week.